We're here with Jack, who was our GM, where we just played a round of Rivers of London, which is a game from
Chaosium, now.
Chaosium, yeah.
Yep.
And can you explain the game to people who don't know?
Okay, so for any fans of the books out there, I apologize if I'm going to butcher your content, right? So this is my interpretation as someone who is new to the series. The way I describe it is it's supernatural meets Hot Fuzz. So whose supernatural stuff happens, but it's all tangled up in British bureaucracy. It's like the Ghostbusters villain, where they're saying like, I'm going to cover you in red tape and I'm going to shut you down. Or the line from Hot Fuzz where it's like, I like that was a nice shootout, but that would have required a ton of paperwork. It's that. So you guys are all official people as part of what's called the Folly, but everyone's either a contractor or a policeman or a doctor or a social worker. All of these things, basically, like you have official things that you're supposed to do and not supposed to do. When you're entering a place, you need to knock on the door, as you guys found out. Like, even if it's a mummy, even if it's like a supernatural creature, we are a land of laws in Britain. Just don't ask the Irish. Anyway, yeah.
So you're a professional DM or GM.
That's right. Yep. Nailed it.
When you familiar, how is it coming into a game? Because you said this, I think you said this was your first time running Rivers of London.
That's correct.
So, is it easy for you to adapt, or it's just game to game?
So that's kind of two questions. Okay. So to learn a new system, it would be tough if it was brand new, but what I really love about Chaosium is that they use what's called the basic roleplay system. And for the record, I don't work for them, right? I'm just a big fan of their games. But they have a unified system that carries over no matter what game you're playing, which is what's so elegant about it. No matter what, you want to roll under a number, and that's the majority of the game. Now, it's broader than that, as we know. We cast Wearlight, we did a spell and all of that stuff. There's unique stuff on top, but what's really elegant about it is that you have that number, you want to get under, that's the system. So it's a really easy system to learn, really easy system to teach, really easy system to learn as a GM once you've done it. Now, from game to game, that can be tricky too. Not tricky. It can have a few steps because you need to reset. You need to get the players what they need. Character sheets probably need to be reset. I need to make sure I'm charged, either electronically or literally physically. If I need to dehydrate, I need to go to the bathroom. All of that stuff. So that. Towards the end of the day, it can be a little tough. You guys were my last game though, so you tell me, how did it go?
No, it went well.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it's about just managing your energy. I do have the curse sometimes of being a little overzealous, perhaps on occasion. Like when I was performing, you guys know, like doing the ghost and all that stuff. I got proper into the character, and I get sweaty at the end and all that stuff. But it's worth it because it gives you guys a good experience. And I do my best to manage my energy. Long-winded answer. There you go.
No, that's what we want. Do you have a go-to game?
So I really like Call of Cthulhu, but specifically the Pulp modification. So Pulp Cthulhu, it's called. So it's basically the Indiana Jones version of the game.
Oh, cool.
Now, to be clear, Call of Cthulhu has always had some Indiana Jones elements to it. Haters will say that's not true. Read the campaigns, guys. You're traveling all over the world. You're redlining.
Exploring
that's what
old
you're
ruins.
doing, right? Exactly, 100%. Whereas in Pulp Cthulhu, you've got more survivability, more hit points, and you've got the luck mechanic. It's super cool. So how it works is just like in a pulp adventure or the Batman 66, the show. How will they get out of this? Or Indiana Jones, classic pulp character in
old
the fridge.
adventure serials.
The bomb goes off,
Yep.
right? Adventure serials, exactly right. Because in those movies, right, they were out of order. But it didn't matter because it always ended with, how will they get out of it this time?
Yep.
Right? So if your character dies and they have above 30 luck, because we had luck in this game, but in Pulp Cthulhu, if a character dies and they have above 30 luck, they die, but they don't. So they come back the next scene and they explain in a pulpy way about how you survive, right?
That's
so like,
fun.
oh my God, guys, I thought I was going to die when I got kicked off that plane too, but then I fell on a hot air balloon, and this guy was like, oh my God, can I give you a lift? And now here I am. Right?
That's a
just
lot
like
of fun.
in the movies.
Yeah.
So I stole that joke. That's from Seth Skokowski, but you know. But it's a really fun system because it really balances what I like, which is like a bit of survivability, a bit of combat with more serious elements if you want it. But you can throw combat in there, and who doesn't like Indiana Jones? It's basically Indiana Jones. It's Indiana Jones the game.
Yeah.
It's great.
And you want to have fun with any game, even if you're playing a more serious game, still want to have fun.
Exactly, because I can always up the difficulty. Trust me, that isn't a problem in Call of Cthulhu. I can always kill you if I want. Trust me. But in Pulp Cthulhu, it just it massages it a little bit, and it means that if you like your characters, then chances are they're not just going to die from like one hit.
Yeah.
Right? You've got a chance to move forward.
Yeah.
Basically.
So we played a pre-set game or a pre-made game.
Yeah.
Do you often create your own campaigns?
Yeah. So
storylines?
Right now I'm doing my own Pulp Cthulhu campaign on youtube.com/@JackSquarePeg, which is called Trouble Over Yonder. So it's a Pulp Cthulhu cowboy game. So it's Good, Bad, and the Ugly meets John Carpenter's The Thing.
Cool.
So basically, it's a show that I've taken an initial adventure, and then I've kind of modified it to my own purposes. So I like to start with something that's pre-written, and then I'll take it
Build
from
off
there.
Yeah.
The question was, do I run my own adventures? So in the pro GM space, that's a little different. It depends. To be honest, I charge more because it takes more time.
Yeah.
And there's different options of pricing.
Yeah.
So if someone comes to me and they want a job, if they hire me to run something, they have the option of custom campaign, something I make for them in my world, because it's almost always D&D, or I was about to flip you off. That was by accident.
That's all right.
Because I was going 1, 2. A pre-written adventure.
Yep.
So Curse of Strahd in D&D. That's a pre-written adventure. That doesn't mean they're bad. It's just not as personal, essentially.
Yeah.
So it depends.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference at all?
Preference. Well, the selfish part of me says I like the homebrew ones because they pay me more for that.
Yeah.
But as far as creativity goes, I always put my spin on it anyway. So not as such.
That's true.
Like even if I'm doing pre-written adventures, it's set in my world.
Yeah.
It's my gods and all of that stuff. I think I prefer a pre-written adventure that is good. Which is not always the case, and I'm not going to name names, but there are plenty of adventures out there, especially in the D&D space, where you're just like, you want to tear your eyeballs out because it's just repetitive or unbalanced or uninteractive, and you end up basically making your own adventure anyway because you want to actually make it entertaining from start to finish. So we were talking about Curse of Strahd just now. I think that's a genuinely good adventure. With the addition, if you're watching at home, use the Lunch Break Heroes edition. They make they do online content, and they have a document called Raising the Stakes. Okay. It's a pun, you see, vampires. So they have that, and it makes it even better. But as it is, it's a really strong, in all the pillars, exploration, combat, role-play, nails it. So it does exist, and I've forgotten your question again. Did I answer it?
Yeah, you answered it. I guess when you are dealing with you using your imagination and dice rolls, and there's all the probability, and there's a lot of things that unforeseeable things are going to happen. a lot of the time, I mean, I guess that's the whole fun of it, is you're going to be using your imagination and sort of creating your own sort of story along the way anyway.
Absolutely,
so
yeah.
even on a pre-made,
if you run the same adventure 4 times,
it's going to be
you're going to get 4 different stories. This is a perfect example. I was saying to you before, you were one of the 2 of the 4 groups that spoke Egyptian. Yeah, looking at you.
Yeah.
Who was smart enough to do that, right? Because the player who did that is behind the camera, you see.
Yeah.
They spoke Egyptian. Now, this isn't part of the adventure, but it made sense to me. I'm like, hang on, if you're speaking, if you're going, you know, like Egyptian saying hello, right, to a mummy, I'm not sure they would bolt. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So you needed to roll, and you succeeded. And so there was still a chance the mummy could run, but the adventure says mummy runs no matter what, which I disagree with.
Yeah.
And so that's a perfect example in a nutshell about what could happen. We don't know what will happen.
Yeah.
That's what the players and the players' dice.
Exactly, yeah. The game gives you just like a little framework and maybe some items or whatever, but then it's up to the players on how they use them and
100%.
how you interact with the DM and the characters.
Any adventure is like a recipe book.
Yeah.
Right? And when you got a recipe, there's a chance you can mess it up.
Yeah.
And there's also, when you've done it enough times, it's about modification, right?
Yeah.
You know, like if I've done this apple pie a few times, I'm going to add a little cinnamon, right? Same thing.
Yeah.
Same idea.
Yeah. So how does one become a professional DM? What was the road like that for you?
I was both incredibly lucky and forward thinking, I suppose, is the best question. So I think I can tell this story. It's not that big a deal. My boss at dungeonmasterforhire.com.au, he wasn't my boss at the time. He was just a good friend. We were doing work together in the volunteer space like this, but for D&D. And I wanted a job. So I said, can we have lunch? And he said yes. And I said, can I have a job? And he said no. And I said, that's fine. And that was the end of the conversation. Then he calls me back the next day. And he says, my wife would like to spend more time with me. So you have a job now. So that's how I got the job. I asked. But in general, I say it glibly, but that's kind of what it comes down to. Keep asking, keep applying, and be humble and do this sort of thing. It's like an actor with theatre, right? If you want to get into theatre, if you want to do any kind of acting, go do community theatre, because then people will know if you're any good.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same idea. So you do this stuff, you meet people, and literally, I can give an example of this just today. I wasn't doing panels this weekend, but then I ran into a friend who said, hey mate, how are you? And I'm like, oh good, I'm in between games. Oh, we've just had someone who can't do a panel, do you want to do it? That wouldn't have happened if I didn't sign up and do some free stuff with them. In this case, it was to do with acting, but he's like, yeah, I know you're a good player and GM. There you go. It's as simple as that. If you make yourself open and you're generous with your time, it will come one way or another, as long as you're not a dick. That's the second rule. Be kind. Yeah, be kind and don't expect stuff. If you're transactional, it's so obvious.
Yeah, so just be open, and that's something you're already probably interested in, and you're already playing, privately, and then, you're like, oh, this guy I know, he's into it more on the business side.
Yeah, he already had the business at the time.
Yeah, and so, it's just putting yourself out there and keep doing what you're doing, and that's something we're hoping to do with our little thing here.
That's cool. I'm excited to learn more about it.
Talk about the panel you're on.
So it's One Shot Revolver. It'll be in the Owl Bear Theatre, which I love that tabletop games have become so big now that we have our own theatre now. So 10:30 a.m. One Shot Revolver. My understanding is characters will die like flies, and it'll be, I'll be playing new ones. So basically, it's just improv comedy. How will I die funny this time?
So you're just playing around, but you're on stage, and there's like a bigger audience.
Yeah, pretty much the synergy of what I do professionally. I'm a performer. You can't tell.
Yeah, I haven't been to many PAX, but all the guys behind the camera have. And they said last year was like the biggest tabletop they have ever seen.
Probably bigger now, right?
Yeah, and now
even bigger now, right?
even even bigger.
Yeah.
So have you seen that growth of like it becoming more mainstream and more accepted? And
have I seen it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
More importantly, I've seen the Fringe is the word that comes to mind. The outsider games that aren't D&D get bigger, which is important because D&D is a bit of a monopoly in and of itself.
Yeah.
And nothing is better for any ecosystem than healthy competition.
Yeah.
Nothing. Specifically for customers, which is what I'm concerned about. So if there are other people that are nipping at the heels of the gorilla, good. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
And it shows a healthy ecosystem. So in general, if you're watching this and you're like, well, what should I do to support the industry? Buy indie whenever you can from small creators, because that stuff goes so far into creating a robust market that influences the big boys, because they will read that stuff because they get it for free. They get all sorts of stuff, and then they will make that game better. It improves everything.
Yeah. I think when you say tabletop, people just think of D&D and that's it. But there's so many more.
That's super normal. I really want to be clear. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's a good gateway.
It's what is advertised. There's a reason that you think of D&D first. It's because they are huge. And they have a big marketing budget. There is nothing wrong with that. The only thing I would encourage is to be curious. That's all.
Yeah, and you can expand, get into that and then expand.
Things.
Yeah.
That's what this is really important. These guys have never played Rivers of London. I've never run Rivers of London. I like learning new things. It's really cool.
Yeah,
I recommend
it. So you mentioned it before. Where can people find you?
Okay, so you can find me on Twitch and on YouTube at Jack Squarepeg. That's JACSQUAREPEG. If you saw me struggling a little bit, that's because I am. I
was following along.
Did I get it right?
I think that was right.
I'm not an educated man. That's why I'm on stage. Give me money. I'm a monkey. I would have fit right in like the carnivals. It's like throw apples at the geek. Yeah, make them eat chicken. So I would have done it too. What the hell was I saying? So Jack Squarepeg.
Jack Square.
And you can find me as a professional GM at www.dungeonmasterforhire.com.au, spelled how it sounds. dungeonmasterforhire.com.au.
Yeah, so people can hire you for parties or...
Yeah. You know what's really cool? We're going to be going to a prison soon.
Oh.
So the Correctionals Victoria have been in touch with us, and I'm so passionate about this. They're like, we think role-playing can be used to help young people in prison, which is my career in a nutshell coming full circle, because I started doing what's called facilitation and theatre, and I know he's trying to end the interview.
No, keep going. This is interesting. This is what we want.
But, when you go to when a prisoner goes, for example, in the year 2000, they come out today, right? Completely different world.
Yeah.
So I studied about how role-playing can be really useful, because this is a phone now, right?
Yeah.
This is, because it looks a little different than it did in the year 2000, right? How are you going to get a job? What are you going to do? Let's practice. That's what role-play is, and that's what role-play is here too. I genuinely believe it's so impactful. The only difference is I started on a stage and now I'm at a table, so my legs hurt less.
That's interesting, because I know in prisons or they do like theatre programs or whatever. Yeah. It never even occurred to me to do a tabletop role-playing thing at a prison. So that's really interesting.
I mean, it's only one step removed as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the only difference is that we don't have a director going, cut, terrible, do it again.
Yeah, and you don't have like rehearsed lines. It's just kind of an improv kind of community building.
Yeah. And it really builds that muscle of being, of knowing you're in a safe place to be stupid. That's really important. In any, you found it. Like instinctually, you guys know this, I'm sure. Like you've got a good friend if you can be vulnerable and whatever that looks like for you, and say something or be some way, and they might call you out on it. depending on what it is, but you can be vulnerable and try new things and
especially for someone who's probably had a hard life and ended up in prison.
Right.
Being vulnerable
Especially
is
a
like
young
the
person.
last thing you want to do. So it's like opening up again.
It's a tough thing.
Yeah.
Because that is the prison environment. You need to kind of you need to do what you need to do to survive.
Yeah.
But reminding them that world is out there.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah. I think just for everyone to just be more open and kind, like you said before, be kind
Just be kind.
Just play around a bit. Have use your imagination. Yeah. So thanks very much, Jack. This is awesome. Maybe we might have to talk to you more about your future. The prison thing and the.
I would love to collaborate in whatever way. You guys were amazing players, and I had a great time.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. All the best.
That was awesome. Thanks.